Everybody. It's Mike Shea here with Linda Straight of Straight to Success Business Coaching. And um, Linda is in a networking group with me. And as I was telling her a little earlier, I am taking this course on exit planning, and it got me to thinking about why business owners don't plan ahead. And Linda has this tool that I'll let her talk about and I'll talk about her business a little bit. But I was always struggling with, and I've struggled with it for 20 years, the problems of business owners executing on things in advance and planning. And I'll let her talk about what's called the DISC tool in greater detail. But how business owners, because they don't understand where they lay on this tool in terms of their personality and leadership styles, how they fail to execute and fix fundamental issues in their business. So Linda, thanks for doing this with me. I'll let you give a quick introduction, and then we can start talking about DISC as it relates to the problem with entrepreneurs and business owners.
Okay. My name, as Mike said, is Linda Straight. I own Straight to Success Business Coaching and Development. I've had my own company for about 11 years, and I've been in leadership, training, and development coaching for probably the last 18 years. And so it's a passion that I have. And part of that is the DISC assessment and how powerful it is in your personal relationships and in the business world. It's a must that everyone should really take advantage of.
Okay. Well, let's go through that. Like, what does DISC? I mean, obviously, DISC is an acronym.
Right?
So, what's it stand for?
DISC is the assessment, the name. Actually, it was developed by the person that developed the lie detector test. So it goes all the way back to like 1938. And there's different versions that companies sell. But ultimately, it's how you're wired. Are you the driver, dominance, influencer, steadiness, and conscientiousness? So, knowing how you're wired takes your communication over the top on how you can communicate to family, business associates, your teams, how you can build your teams, how you can build your business. It is just the most fascinating tool that you can have in your arsenal for growing a business.
So, I remember, obviously, I'm ex-military. I remember getting hired at various companies because I was ex-military, and I don't think I've ever done a DISC, but I have done Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
Um, and I remember, and as I've matured and gotten older and wiser with more gray hair, I note in retrospect that my leadership back then, which were also prior military, hired, not in all cases, but in most cases, they hired themselves. They kept hiring military. And that out of that came, I remember there being some specific conflict with HR people where they became biased because almost the organization was tilted too hard to the driver.
Um,
Um, and then they sent me off. I was a driver. I really was, right? I'm going to hit that number. I'm going to push, push, push. And I didn't understand pacing. And they sent me off to, where was it? Dale Carnegie, to learn to not be such a driver.
uh,
Um, and I learned to be a little bit more subtle, and to appreciate where the other people sat on the desk. So relative to our problem of these business owners, where do you think business owners generally sit, entrepreneurs in particular?
Most entrepreneurs are D's. Okay. They're the drivers. Okay. But again, it's a blend. We're not just a D. Okay. That can be your predominant letter, but we're not all built that way. And we all need, just like you indicated, you need a well rounded team, because if everyone on the team is D's, you're just going to kill people along the way. You're not going to make any grounds on that. So you really need that well-rounded team for growth and communication and development.
I'm going to make it's the age of Trump, so I guess I could be a little bit more direct now. Is it fair to say, like we were talking earlier about my wife at the hospital, my wife always defaults to, um, Mars, Venus type discussions. And
Mhm.
she'll hear, and, as I was doing the SEPA course, she's listening to some leadership stuff and she does emotional intelligence when she teaches training. And obviously she's in women's and children, so it's predominantly female staff. I once asked her why there was no male leadership in her division. And obviously it's women's and children, so it's a little bit more sensitive. But the patients are also women, so it requires more empathy. So although she's a driver, she probably, if I'm understanding what you're saying, even though she's a driver in terms of business performance, she probably has more traits that, or a blended of the other traits, um, in terms of how she
Exactly.
leads and holds people accountable.
Exactly.
So
She probably has more S. The majority of the population is S. And again, understanding that there's no right or wrong. A D is not better than an S. A C is not better than an I. It's just knowing who you are and understanding so you can pull up your weaknesses or use your strengths. Like if you're just a D and you're meeting with someone that's an S, if you D them, then you're not going to get anywhere. So you're going to have to pull up your S to show empathy and compassion and steadiness to them.
should is it fair to assume that smaller businesses, i.e., your local lawn guy that's got two or three people and they're in the service sector and they got to do 100 stops a day, that person's going to be much more of a driver? Would that
I've seen, honestly, your high performers or very successful businesses usually have a driver somewhere in the organization. But you don't have to be a D to have a business or a successful business. You can have any of the letters. You just need to understand them so you can use your C, use your I. Like I have a very low S and C, but if I came at every business that I coach with the D personality, I wouldn't have too many clients if I didn't use my other strengths and pull them up, if you will.
how do you get, because this is something I personally struggle with, and some of it's economic. How do I get business owners to understand this dynamic and then how to hire for it? Like, how does it translate from theory to application to the financial statement and the balance sheet?
Well, I think the first step is you have to understand yourself. And so, I offer like a 30-page disc assessment on yourself. And then you have your key players in your organization. No matter how big or small, you have key people that you depend on. And then getting them to take a disc assessment. And then you're able to identify your target audience. Who's your target audience? And what is that target audience? Usually, most customers, remember, are going to be an S. So you have to communicate to the S how the S receives it. Okay. But you also need the planners of the team. The D left alone would be very unsuccessful because they just power through. And so you really need the approach that who you are, your communication style, who the people in your company are, their communication style, so that when you're communicating at the highest level possible. And then you identify like, okay, here's a position that we're looking to fill in HR. And what are the qualities that we need there? What disc assessment, where do they need to be on the chart? Because every D is not the same. Every I is not the same. It's a blend of all the personality styles. So basically, the disc is rated 0 to 100, and then it's graphed on where you fall. And then we identify what you're looking for in your company, and we outline here's what the perfect disc would be. So when you're interviewing, one of those steps that I recommend before you actually hire is that we have them take a disc, because the disc is true unless they fake it, which is very hard to do. And anyone 25 and older, your disc is going to be the same when you're 25, 35, 105.
It doesn't
Unless you're,
change?
it doesn't change. After 25, it doesn't change unless you're under environmental stress or relationship stress, but that's the only thing that would impact it.
I find that, so, I think I'm still a driver, but my appreciation for the subtler communication skills is far greater than it was. I mean, I can remember being, Al Dunlap, slash and burn, drive the number, deliver the stock price at 25. And now at 56, I'm more slow and steady, wins the race, consistency, employee retention, consistent margin growth, and developing people so that of a sustainability model over time. Because now I've experienced
Right,
recessions,
right.
pandemics, all these other things. So
But those are
can you,
learned behaviors. So that's not how you're initially wired, but you've learned these behaviors and how you need to adjust them according to the situation or the people that you're dealing with.
you were telling me a story about, not in great detail, about a client of yours where, the boss, the owner is the driver, and then his staff does the disc. Did and there wasn't necessarily a buy-in. Kind of
Correct.
drill a little lessons learned on what that looks like. Yeah, I find it interesting that he actually was smart enough to hire you to do the disc on the other people to fill his deficit of understanding.
Well, it was actually, he was taking a backseat role in the company. So it was one of his leaders that believed in leadership. And we disc all of the employees of, the different teams that happened to be in the mortgage industry. So we had processors and loan officers. Well, they're opposites. They're complete opposites because the processors are the slow and steady and, analytical, and the salespeople generally are high D's or high I's. They either influence people to work with them or they just push so hard that people cave and begin to work with them. So then we posted their discs so everyone knew when they went in to communicate with them what their personality styles. And then we work with the salespeople to identify, okay, in the mortgage industry, let's say they got a new customer and that customer was an S. And you learn what the traits are of each one of these personalities. So within the first, I would say 10 seconds, you can identify them. They were identified, and then the file was marked what their disc style was. So everyone on the team that worked with them was able to communicate at a higher level that they could receive. And the customer surveys came back excellent after that. It really raised their standing in customer service, which is one of the key elements. You're either improving your customer service or you're driving more sales. And so once we helped people understand each other and understand how to use this in day to day, it was just a no-brainer. It was a well invested dollar to make this happen.
Ex-Army officer here. So I believe leadership is everything. I used to say 25 years ago, I would lay out, you get what you lead. That's it. If we fail, it's because I failed to lead. I mean, the buck stops here type scenario. Do you find in your experience with your clients that certain roles have certain types of personalities? Understanding there's a range. So if I'm doing disc assessments and I've got someone in the warehouse, right, who's been doing distribution because that's all they've ever done, and then we find out they're a driver, does that shed light for leadership to go, hey, I think I got this guy in the wrong seat on the bus?
Absolutely. That you'd be able to tap him on the shoulder and be able to do more for the company by putting him in a D role than where he is in a typical S or C role. You know,
Is there a, is there a correlation to employee turnover and having people in the wrong disc profile type role?
Oh, absolutely. We all know that if you have employees on the wrong seat in the bus, they're not going to be happy and you're not going to be happy with their performance. So it just leads to a constant turnover, which in business, that's dollars just going out the door.
Okay. And I guess the same thing would, as you alluded to earlier, the same thing would correlate to the types of customers. So, we were talking about my wife's role, how most of her clients are women in the maternal world, pre-baby type stuff, that the concerns and the emotions and, what's highlighted in that event um, kind of sits on a certain spectrum or matrix on the profile, right? So then you need to hire people who understand that, right?
Everybody has their own, depending on what their blend is or what their predominant awareness is. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. So I'm going to just relate it to a personal example. I'm a high D. Usually your partners are the opposite of what you are. More times than not, you are not both D personalities. Sometimes, I mean, there's
What
never
happens if they
100%.
are? Is it
Well,
a
then
war?
that's a whole nother discussion. But in our household, I'm a D and an I, and my husband's an S and C. So when I load the dishwasher, it doesn't matter how you load it because they're all going to get water, they're all going to get soap. So I just put the things in the dishwasher. My husband comes behind me and says, "Oh no, it has to follow the S and C rule. So it has to be set up like this so that it gets the proper water and the proper soap." So you see, it's everywhere that you are. I mean, it's how you are wired, and you take it everywhere you go.
I'm thinking I do the dishwasher and my wife doesn't load the dishwasher, and I'll do it wrong. I'm like, well, but you don't load it, so why is it your wheelhouse? Like, get out of my lane there, cowboy.
Now,
On the inside, I don't say that on the outside, and
of
this is
course
being
not. You're a
recorded, so
smart
God
man.
help me if she's, yeah,
You've
God
been
help me if she
married a
sees
while.
this. Yeah,
One of the
26 years
things
I've
that
learned.
we one of the things that we see a lot is a driver who's a D and a C, and they're both pretty much high level, right? So imagine a D, they've got their foot on the gas, and a C is very cautious and they have their foot on the brake. Imagine driving your business with a foot on the gas and a foot on the brake. What would that do to your business? So you have to come
Yeah,
up with systems and ways to meet the deadlines and have the plans, because the D is typically not the planner of the
yeah,
team.
yeah. It's a
So
rhythm.
going back to what you said, most entrepreneurs and business owners you run into don't have that plan in place to sell their business or take it where they want to take it.
Yeah, it's I generally want to help people, and when I come across circumstances where, when you alluded to it. So 80% of people's wealth when you own a business is tied up in your business, because small business owners in particular don't have access to capital, and they're also, it's a lifestyle. They're running this thing for their life and providing income, and they've got children, and then these become habits, and then all of a sudden life happens and you can't access this money. It's like putting all your money in your 401k and you can't access it. And the mental models, or where you sit on the disc, sometimes I believe largely inhibits you from thinking about, if you're a D, you're a doer, right? I want to get this done because I need to be there for my son at basketball practice, and my wife's working a job, and life gets in the way. And that's a whole nother part of your how you train people to be business owners and leaders, and your coaching session is, hey, organizing so you have time to sit and think, and all the rest. But um, it's crippling when I see people that can't access their capital, and then the rest of their life, then they can't get out. They're trapped,
Yeah.
right? And that's a
Yeah.
major issue. Well, I told you this would be quick. I'm not done recording. I'd like you to give your website, how people get a hold of you, a list of what you guys do, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share with you. The disc is absolutely one of the most fascinating aspects of my business. I just love it. And you can see, being a D, I'm results oriented. So anytime that we implement procedures from the DISC, we can see the results. And so if you're interested, just go by my website at www.straight2success.com. Or you could reach out to me by email, which is linda@straight2success.com. And I'd love to help anyone that is interested in higher profits and better communication.
Hey, I'm actually thinking of having you do it for my family.
Oh, that's the best. We can DISC any child over the age of 5 as well. So you're then able, young parents are able to really bring out the best qualities of their child. But yes, family, I DISCed my daughter's boyfriend. So
Hey, come on in. Sit down.
Pull up a chair.
Yeah.
So that they were able to communicate better, and then we did the whole family so that and now, if there's a discussion, somebody will just say, well, that's just your D version of it. Here's, because we are D's and my daughter's a very high I and her boyfriend's a very high C. So you can imagine how that communication goes there. So
Yeah,
it's very, very valuable.
I honestly, I think I'm going to do it. I've got a law school kid, I've got an interior design kid, and then I got a 13-year-old boy who's, he's a 13-year-old boy. And whenever they come home for Christmas, the dynamics and the tension, because they really don't know how to communicate with each other. And I'm constantly having to go, you have to understand where they are. Oh, he doesn't listen and he doesn't understand what I'm going through. And I'm just like,
Oh, I get it.
yeah, it's entertaining because you're sitting back going, what, I didn't have brothers and your mom didn't have brothers and sisters. And, like we don't deal with people every day. And if you can capture it at the earliest stage,
Yeah.
then, all the crap that causes them problems as they go to school and college and those first jobs, you kind of preemptively, it's like a superpower. If you've got like that Jedi power that you can recognize personalities when you come across them, then you're able to kind of do the Jedi mind trick and go, these are not the droids you're looking for, and avoid conflict, which makes you look like a better, and not just makes you look like, but it literally makes you a better leader, and not just assuming the role, but able to lead people to get the outcomes you want, no matter what role you're in, right?
Yeah. So we have all DISCs are not the same. I'm certified through the John Maxwell team, which John Maxwell is one of the leadership gurus of the world.
Yep.
And we have the leadership DISC, but it encompasses everything. It identifies how you lead. We have the career DISCs, which if someone's looking to change careers or get into a career, here's the opportunities, here's the industries that you would most likely fit with. And then we have the young adults and the youth DISC. So it's really just fascinating, and it is hands down one of the best investments every person can make for themselves and for their career, their business, or their opportunities.
Yeah, I'm thinking next week I'm going down to our office, our background office here in Fort Lauderdale, because we have a new class of brokers and we always get finance people. That's what we get. And I go in there and I'm going to go, yeah, this isn't that. This is sales, right?
Yeah.
And the math is the math is the math. I could teach a monkey math.
Yeah.
The qualitative component. I mean, the whole thing we're discussing now is why don't business owners sell? Okay, well, because they tie up their capital, it's because they're a D. That's nothing to do with a balance sheet. That's all personality, leadership, coaching. Those are soft skills that people need to have no matter what their profession is.
So what I'm doing now is I have a DISC sales program. And so the sales program is, okay, here's your salesperson A, and he might be a D, but the client he's trying to capture is a C. Here's the top 5 questions that you should ask on a sales call if you're dealing with a high C, or and you're able, as you learn the DISC, I mean, it's not that complicated for the basics. You're able to identify like in the first 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah,
So
that's sales 101, right? I think I've always told people is like when you walk into an office, you scan that room. You scan that room, you identify common issues, You pre-screen, you look up their LinkedIn profile, go to their social media, see what they talk about, find affinity, and then, you know, I like to be a bit of a mystery, right? So, oh, he's a military guy, right? And then I've got jokes and stuff hanging on my wall and, something from Tommy Boy, like this guy's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. And that's on purpose too, because
Yeah.
I don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
But if you're a salesperson, what you're saying is, and you're coaching them is like, hey, if you understand these skills and you understand how to use this tool, then you're going to increase your closing ratio from X to Y. And I know you work a ton with realtors, and the spectrum of people that deal with real estate agents is massive. You
Yeah.
know, you've
And
got male, female, husband, wife, gay,
it's
straight, black, white, purple.
and then you're dealing with the emotions. So those are highly emotional things. Sales is highly emotional.
Yep.
And so it's a teachable skill that if more people taught their sales agents, they would see see their customer surveys go off the charts, and they would see their profits increase for
Absolutely.
a limited amount of investment. So
Yep.
really a no-brainer.
Well, thank you so much. And if anybody wants to get out, reach out to Linda at straight2success.com. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.